Letter 18. It is the month of December, and yet the whole city is in a sweat. Festivity at state expense is given unrestricted license. Everywhere there echoes the noise of preparations on a massive scale. It all suggests that the Saturnalia holidays are different from the ordinary working day, when the difference is really non-existent, so much so in fact that the man who said that December used to be a month but is now a year was, in my opinion, not far wide of the mark. If I had you with me I should enjoy consulting you and finding out what course you think we should follow. Should we make no alteration in our daily habits, or should we take off our togas? Time was when a change from formal wear would come about only during periods of grave political upheaval, whereas with us it happens for holidays and pleasure's sake. And have dinner parties with a note of gaiety about them, to avoid giving the impression that we disagree with the ways of those around us? If I know you as well as I think I do and you had to give a decision in the matter, you would say that we should be neither altogether like nor altogether unlike the festive-hatted crowd. But perhaps this is the very season when we should be keeping the soul under strict control, making it unique and abstaining from pleasure just when the crowd are all on pleasure bent. If the soul succeeds in avoiding either heading or being carried away in the direction of the temptations that lead people into extravagant living, no surer proof of its strength of purpose can be vouchsafed it. Remaining dry and sober takes a good deal more strength of will when everyone about one is puking drunk. It takes a more developed sense of fitness, on the other hand, not to make of oneself a person apart, to be neither indistinguishable from those about one nor conspicuous by one's difference, to do the same things but not in quite the same manner. For a holiday can be celebrated without extravagant festivity. Still, my determination to put your moral strength of purpose to the test is such that I propose to give even you the following direction found in great men's teaching. Set aside now and then a number of days during which you will be content with the plainest of food, and very little of it, and with rough, coarse clothing, and will ask yourself, is this what one used to dread? It is in times of security that the spirit should be preparing itself to deal with difficult times. While fortune is bestowing favors on it, then is the time for it to be strengthened against her rebuffs. In the midst of peace the soldier carries out map.ovra, throws up earthworks against a non-existent enemy and tires himself out with unnecessary toil in order to be equal to it when it is necessary. If you want a man to keep his head when the crisis comes you must give him some training before it comes. This was the aim of the men who once every month pretended they were poor, bringing themselves face to face with want, to prevent their ever being terrified by a situation which they had frequently rehearsed. You must not at this point imagine that I mean meals like Timon's or at the poor man's room or anything else to which the extravagance of wealth resorts to amuse away its tedium. That palate must be a real one, and the same applies to your smock, and your bread must be hard and grimy. Endure all this for 3 or 4 days at a time, sometimes more, so that it is a genuine trial and not an amusement. At the end of it, believe me, Lucilius, you will revel in being sated for a penny, and will come to see that security from care is not dependent on fortune, for even when she is angry she will always let us have what is enough for our needs. There is no reason, mind you, why you should suppose yourself to be performing a considerable feat in doing this. You will only be doing something done by thousands upon thousands of slaves and paupers. But take credit on one account, that you will be doing it of your own free choice and finding it no more difficult to endure on a permanent basis than to try out once in a while. We should be practicing with a dummy target, getting to be at home with poverty so that fortune cannot catch us unprepared. We shall be easier in our minds when rich if we have come to realize how far from burdensome it is to be poor. The great hedonist teacher Epicurus used to observe certain periods during which he would be niggardly in satisfying his hunger, with the object of seeing to what extent, if at all, one thereby fell short of attaining full and complete pleasure, and whether it was worth going to much trouble to make the deficit good. At least so he says in the letter he wrote to Polyaenus in the year Quirinus was in office. He boasts in it indeed that he is managing to feed himself for less than a halfpenny, whereas Metrodorus, not yet having made such good progress, needs a whole halfpenny. Do you think such fare can do no more than fill a person up? It can fill him with pleasure as well, and not the kind of insubstantial, fleeting pleasure that needs constant renewal but a pleasure which is sure and lasting. Barley porridge, or a crust of barley bread, and water do not make a very cheerful diet, but nothing gives one keener pleasure than the ability to derive pleasure even from that, and the feeling of having arrived at something which one cannot be deprived of by any unjust stroke of fortune. Prison rations are more generous. The man in the condemned cell is not so scantily fed as that by the executioner. To reduce oneself, then, of one's own free choice to a diet that no man has any real call to be apprehensive about even if he is sentenced to death, that is an act of real spiritual greatness. To do this is truly to forestall the blows of fortune. So, my dear Lucilius, start following these men's practice and appoint certain days on which to give up everything and make yourself at home with next to nothing. Start cultivating a relationship with poverty. Dear guest, be bold enough to pay no heed to riches, and so make yourself, like him, worthy of a god. For no one is worthy of a god unless he has paid no heed to riches. I am not, mind you, against your possessing them, but I want to ensure that you possess them without tremors, and this you will only achieve in one way, by convincing yourself that you can live a happy life even without them, and by always regarding them as being on the point of vanishing. But it's time I started folding up this letter. Not till you've settled your account, you say? Well, I'll refer you to Epicurus for payment. Anger carried to excess begets madness. How true this is you're bound to know, having had both slaves and enemies. It is a passion, though, which flares up against all types of people. It is born of love as well as hate, and is as liable to arise in the course of sport or jesting as in affairs of a serious kind. The factor that counts is not the importance of the cause from which it springs but the kind of personality it lands in the same way as with fire what matters is not the fierceness of the flame but where it catches. Solid objects may resist the fiercest flame while, conversely, dry and inflammable matter will nurse a mere spark into a conflagration. It is true, my dear Lucilius. The outcome of violent anger is a mental raving, and therefore anger is to be avoided not for the sake of moderation but for the sake of sanity.
Thank you. Create your own audio using xnotebook.in.